I'm facing both sides off. These are the blanks for the inner bearing adapters on the truck brake kits. And I've set the program up so that it'll take 2 passes on the first side, because that will be the most unpredictable, as far as how long this is coming off the bandsaw. So it'll take 1 pass that, will clean it up. It's not a real heavy depth of cut. None of them are. And then it'll take another 25 thou pass at 5 thou per rev, and it's running at 300 surface feet per minute. I could be more aggressive. This is working nice, so I'm just letting it go. I have the program set up so that it will run the first side. It will, and I had to manually edit the G code from the conversational. I did the cuts and everything on conversational. But then I have it come back to G30, okay, move out of the way. Then I have it M1 pause, but the spindle keeps running. I can file any burr off here, and I can do the deburring on the inside here, and I can't get it to do an M5 command and stop the spindle right after that. I don't know what's going on with it, but so what I'm doing is I'm going over to PathPilot and I'm turning the RPM down to 0. Okay, and so once it's down at 0, then I pull the piece out, flip it over, start the spindle back up manually, put it back to RPM 100%, and then tell it cycle start. And it comes in and it does a 25 thou pass on the other side. Then it does the same thing. It moves back to G30. It does an M1 pause so I can deburr it. I have an M5 in there as well, and it's not recognizing that one either. So as soon as I hit cycle start again, it just goes to the M30 and stops. Now that that's all explained, hopefully it didn't take too long, I'm going to just go ahead and run through one. Ready? That's all there is to it. Cycle time is about 1:17. Well, I've been working on getting these dialed in for the better part of the week. Part of the challenge has been the DOM to begin with, the weld inside. I don't take that much off the inside, and so that's why I grab it from the inside, because of the concentricity. If I grab it from the outside, man, I'll just be wasting part after part. Well, on these, see how big that weld divot is? There we go. So I've been having issues, and there's a couple of scrape marks in here too. But what I've been having to do is that I've been having to orient that weld with the jaws to so that I actually get a full cut. So I'm going to go ahead and run some show the footage of one being cut, and I'm cutting the inside and the outside, but I'm not cutting the backside. Okay, so this is op 1. These are the inner bearings for the truck adapters. Yes, inner bearing adapters for the truck brake kits. I'm only using 2 tools. I could get away with just using that, but I don't like the idea of pushing that all the time. This one's a bit more rigid. You'll notice too that I could go much more aggressive. I've got it up to where I'm getting, getting some gold to even blue at times chips. And that was a really good chip there, because so if you notice, it's silver here and the color continues blue. So this was the end of the cut. The blue, as it starts cutting and everything like that, that gets heat soaked more and turns blue. But as it's coming off the thing, off the part, it's silver. So I really like that that heat range, that setup, that speed. Surface feet per minute. I mean, I do have some others that are just, you know, quite hot. If you can see that, maybe not. Anyway, that one was pretty purple. Back to what I was saying. You'll notice I could take a whole lot heavier cut. Okay, this machine's got the power. There's no, you don't hear the RPM drop when it starts and anything like that. So I am not pushing this at all. And the reason for that is purely because there's only a 1/4 inch or so of jaw there. I have it marked here. This is the jaw that if I put the welded groove in here, and you can feel it. Okay, I'll just open that back up a hair. I've got it to just snug. I get it to where I can turn it, and hear that kind of pop in. And I did this years ago. That's just an extra ratchet. I put it in there. I did it before for more leverage partly, but also too is, you know, there's not enough room here to actually get in. I could go through and lengthen one of these, but then I'd still need a longer bar. So, you know, the breaker bar with the extension works perfect. So. A lot of times I don't get these strings. I'm not sure I want to bother recording it again just to try to get a shot without those strings. I think you can see that's really pretty nice. And one thing too is I initially left, you know, like 6 thou stock to leave on the roughing, and then I came in and I did the finish pass. And you can tell it's 2 separate operations because you can see the tool pull out to the safe zone. I have it set at like 1 inch and then come back in. But the face here was getting a lot of rubbing because I had this set for like 6 thou and this set for like 3 or 4 thou. These are 431 inserts. Anyway, you need enough meat there to, you know, kind of get past the, these aren't razor sharp, you know, so the cutting lip there. So I actually upped that to 7 thou, I think. I went to 8, didn't care for it, went back down to 6 or 7, and I'll try. It's a beautiful finish, and I had it down to 3.5, but that's like the bare minimum, and I kept getting more rubbing than finish. So a bearing sits on here, so I don't need a super fine finish. A seal rides on here, a grease seal. 6 thou per rev is still perfectly, it's perfect. Okay, I was getting a lip here when I had it down around 4,000. It wasn't cutting, so it was actually just pushing the metal, and it would end up leaving a burr there. So when I upped it to where it's at now, 7,000, 6,000, something like that, I'm no longer getting that burr. So I'm quite happy with it. On the inside, so you can see right there at the edge of the jaw, it's kind of funny, since the radius of the jaw is not the same as the radius the inside of the tube, it's grabbing on the edges, not the middle of the jaw. If you understand what I mean there, it catches on the sides, because the middle, the radius for the center there for the jaws is bigger than the radius for the ID here. The dip in the weld there catches on the edge of the jaw, and that's just enough. And you could see there that it makes it to where I'm really close with making that. See the divot there? Right at the corner of the jaw there. I think you can see down in here, you know, how that divot is screwing with me. So these basically become test pieces for doing the backside, getting it set up. So there's a bit of burr back here, and a couple seconds on the Scotch-Brite wheel takes care of that. There's no burr here. This is actually smooth and pretty. Nice, huh? See, and even the face there is pretty decent. There we go. See it? Nice divot. Well, let's check the dimensions here. 126.5. I want 126. 174. Oh, just a hair friggin' big. Okay, I'm gonna have to check the insert, make sure the tip of the insert is okay, because this isn't quite as pretty a finish as the last couple. So I gotta double check that insert, and that's definitely too big. It'll be a good test piece for the other, but I'd really like it if these ones with the insides would, perfect insides, would actually be perfect outsides. And that's 60. That's right on the money. So that should slip on here nicely. There we go. Perfect. So I may spin this one with some, this won't matter, a half a thou on this where the seal is, no big deal. But I may put it back in and resize this with a little sandpaper and Scotch-Brite to get it down enough that I can put it in the good pile. Alright, I've already recorded doing the other side here, and this one's actually got a really nice surface finish. Some of the others I've had to do a little sanding, Scotch-Briting on. It was, I don't know why, it was all over the place. A bunch of them came out great, a bunch of them came out with, as it was done originally, you know, the inside and this was all done in one op, so it's all concentric to each other. This side doesn't really matter. It's basically for clearance to the fillet at the base of the spindle. Okay, so I'm using an expandable arbor here that I cut years ago. This is just a spacer with a cut in it to allow it to flex. It's actually one of the truck spacers at the base of the spindle. And the reason I did that is because when originally I cut it, I had it go down so far that I couldn't get in here far enough because I was only doing a chamfer. And so that gave me enough clearance. And then when I realized I'm doing it CNC and I can do a fillet, I needed to reach in farther to blend that fillet in. So I needed to bring that shelf back out. Well, rather than buy another expanding collet, arbor, I just put a spacer under there. Now, since then, in order to get the 620, because this will become a 521, and it'll be a ½ inch thick here, the 620 is 80 thou smaller. Well, when I put this on, the boring bar would have hit with the 620. I'm not quite sure what I did before. I don't know. But I basically went in and I shaved this face down here recently to get me the clearance. So I may only show the 521s. The 620 is same programming, but I offset the work offset 80 thou to bring the whole thing in. Since it thinks it's still starting out here, it just travels a little bit further on the cut. No big deal. It's set up so that I can either cut a raw one like this to a 620, or I can cut an existing one that's already been cut to 521. I can just put it on here, fire up the 620 program, toolpaths, and cut it either way. So I'm probably going to cut at least 8 to 10 of these as 620s once I'm done with this one, and 3 more 521s. This will be a 521 one. I'm not sure if I'm going to show the 620 because it's the same thing. It would be nice. I don't have a 3/4 inch collet. This probably would be more accurate. So I could have, that's a 3/4 inch shaft, so I could have just put it in a collet there, left it locked. That would have been nice. I could have spun at higher speeds if I really wanted to, that kind of thing. But it's a matter of getting them done, and this is what I have, and this is how I've done it before, so close enough. Alright, so careful taking that off. There's a little bit of a chamfer there. Maybe. I gotta look at that. Inside seems pretty good. Oh yeah. And it's not as big a chamfer as on the 521 typically, because I need that extra seal space there. I don't want it cutting back in further and having the seal drop off into the crevice there, so it's just enough there to knock it off. So that one came out really nice. I think I'm going to hit it with a little Scotch-Brite, wipe it off, and do the second one. So I'm just going to spin it at the 900 RPMs where it was before. Yeah, I like that. Okay, now the real test is it fitting on the test spindle. I like that. There's no noticeable lip there, even though there's a change in texture. So that's perfect. And this is the spindle. Perfect. I knew it would be because I knew this fit already from doing it on the 521, and so when it blended in so nicely, I knew it would fit perfect. Okay, just going to leave that sitting there and go run the second one.